When I said yes, I had no idea I was stepping into the biggest chapter of my life. For 3 years, I'd been planning to propose to Lisa. It all started when we met at my buddy Jake's birthday party. The moment I saw her, a petite blonde wearing a playful summer dress, I was completely taken. That night was a blur of laughter and drinks. Everyone went overboard, and Lisa and I were no exception. We drank so much that we ended up waking up in the same bed the next morning. "This isn't like me," she whispered as we opened our eyes. I wrapped an arm around her and gave a casual shrug. "It's okay," I said. If only I had realized that moment was a subtle red flag. Maybe I would have walked away then and there. But that's a story for another time. From that day on, Lisa and I were inseparable. We spent every evening together, sometimes crashing at her place, other times at mine. A year later, I graduated from college and scored a job at an oil company. My career took off faster than I expected, and within a short time, I was able to buy a modern apartment in a newly developed complex. I invited Lisa to move in, and she agreed. Life felt perfect. I worked long hours, and she made our place feel like home. As I climbed the corporate ladder and eventually earned a small managerial role, my schedule grew even more intense. Lisa didn't like how little time I spent at home, but I did my best to make it up to her with thoughtful gifts and spontaneous surprises. I remember getting seriously ill once, some kind of nasty flu that knocked me out for days. Lisa took care of everything. She made sure I ate, kept track of my meds, and stayed by my side the entire time. That was the moment it hit me. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I wanted the whole picture: marriage, kids, growing old together. About a month after I recovered, we visited her parents. Over dinner, I stood up, my palms damp with nerves. "Could I get everyone's attention for a second?" I said. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, turned to look at me with kind smiles. Lisa looked curious. I'd always had a good relationship with her family. They were happy she'd found someone they trusted. "Lisa, will you marry me?" I asked, my hands trembling slightly. She said yes, and I slipped a modest diamond ring onto her finger. We agreed to tie the knot on the anniversary of the day we met, just 2 months away. From that moment, everything kicked into high gear: invitations, fittings, catering, venues, decorators. I'd pictured something small and intimate, but Lisa and her parents pushed for a lavish celebration. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime moment," they said. Roughly a month before the wedding, I started noticing something off. Lisa seemed distant, secretive. She was constantly out. Appointments, fittings, some sort of procedure. I chalked it up to wedding stress and her desire for perfection. I didn't want to add pressure, so I let it go. Big mistake. One afternoon at work, I decided to check in. "Hey babe, where are you?" I asked. "Where do you think I am?" she snapped. "I'm home." Her tone caught me off guard. I thought, okay, maybe she's just tired. I'll surprise her. So I left the office early, picked up a gorgeous bouquet and a fancy bottle of champagne. Figured we could take a moment to breathe and celebrate. When I got to our apartment, I held the flowers up to the peephole and rang the bell. Silence. No answer. Using my key, I stepped inside. It was immediately obvious. She hadn't been there all day. "Lisa," I called out. She answered on the phone. "Nick, you already asked that. Why are you checking up on me?" I didn't respond. I just hung up, confused and a little shaken. Why lie about being home? Where was she, really? My thoughts were interrupted by the jingle of keys at the door. Lisa walked in, arms loaded with heavy grocery bags. "Where have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She froze when she saw me. I was out getting a surprise ready," she stammered. Seeing her struggling with the bags, I reached out to help. "I've got it," she snapped, yanking them away. "What's going on?" I asked more firmly. I managed to grab one of the bags and peeked inside, takeout containers from a nearby restaurant. I looked at her, confused. What's all this? I didn't have time to cook, she said quickly. I had a dress fitting and ran behind schedule. Then why lie about being home? Because it's just a girl thing, Nick. I didn't want to bug you at work. I just want everything to be perfect for our wedding day, so you'll be proud of me. She stepped closer, rose onto her toes, and kissed me. We ended up in the bedroom. That was her usual way of smoothing things over when something felt off. I'll admit, it worked. Later, we shared the takeout and drank the champagne, but my mind wasn't at ease. The questions kept circling. And then, finally, the wedding day arrived. I pulled up outside the venue where Lisa was getting ready, and the moment I saw her, I was speechless. She looked absolutely radiant in her wedding gown. Delicate crystals shimmered across the fabric, and floral embellishments ran down the flowing skirt. The neckline dipped just enough to show off an elegant necklace, and a tiny glittering tiara sat perfectly atop her styled hair. My chest swelled with emotion. That's the woman I'm marrying, I thought, barely able to contain how proud and happy I felt. On the way to the ceremony in the limo, I leaned close and whispered, "Can't wait to get you out of that dress later." She gave me a bashful smile and took a quiet sip of champagne. What I didn't know then was that moment would never come. The wedding at City Hall went off without a hitch, following the usual formalities. Afterward, we did a photo session all over town, capturing memories with scenic backdrops. When we finally made it to the large two-story home we'd rented in the suburbs, our guests were already waiting. "Bread and salt for the bride and groom," the MC called cheerfully. Lisa and I each took a bite of the symbolic loaf before we settled into our seats. The evening unfolded with non-stop toasts, party games, and cheers of "kiss, kiss" from friends and family. By midnight, Lisa could barely stay on her feet. She was completely wasted. I was still sober enough to keep things together, but irritation started creeping in. It was our wedding night, and she was too drunk to even focus. A while later, I stepped away for a bit, only to hear the MC shout, "The bride's been kidnapped." A typical wedding prank, I figured. Probably the best man demanding a silly ransom, maybe some goofy dance or a fake bribe. But something didn't feel right. Lisa had seemingly vanished. No one could say where she was. I assumed she might have stumbled upstairs and passed out somewhere. I headed up to find her. The second floor was oddly quiet, eerily so. That's strange, I thought. She definitely came up here. I turned to go back down, and there she was again, seated at the table, surrounded by guests laughing hysterically. "What's so funny?" I asked, sharper than I meant to sound. The MC filled me in. Jake, the friend who first introduced us, had rescued Lisa and brought her back from wherever she'd been hiding. I brushed off the uneasy feeling. At least she's back, I thought. One less thing to worry about. Shortly after, Lisa began complaining about a pounding headache and said she needed to lie down. I was about to take her upstairs when her cousin Ryan cut in. "I'll help her up, man. You know how people get if the bride and groom disappear at the same time." It made sense, so I let him go with her. I figured I'd check on her in a bit. Guests had begun leaving, and I was thinking about slipping away to see Lisa when Mary slid into the seat beside me. Mary and I had known each other since childhood. We used to joke back then that we'd get married someday, but life had taken us in different directions. "I still can't believe you went through with this," she said quietly, her voice tinged with regret. I blinked. Why wouldn't I? She hesitated. "Because Lisa was with Jake when you two first hooked up. She was still seeing him that night, until she jumped ship." My ears started ringing. Jake and Lisa had never told me they were a thing. They'd always made it seem like they were just friends. Fury surged through me as I got up and stormed toward the stairs. I climbed them two at a time and burst into the bedroom. And there it was. My worst fear come to life. Lisa, my brand new wife, was half undressed, tangled in the sheets with Ryan. Candles flickered in the dim light, casting shadows over the two of them. I stood frozen, disbelief flooding my system. Then I shouted, loud enough that guests downstairs came rushing up to see what the commotion was. I could barely speak, trying to process what was in front of me. Eventually, I found my voice. Lisa, how could you? Ryan is your cousin. The crowd went silent. Then came a wave of murmurs. And suddenly, her sister Sarah blurted out, Cousin? What are you talking about? Ryan's my boyfriend. I stared at the two of them, Lisa and Ryan, now scrambling to cover themselves. Lisa broke into tears. Nick, please. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. But my head was spinning. My mind couldn't keep up with the chaos. I shoved my way through the crowd, out the front door, and into the cold night. I collapsed onto a bench, the sharp air cutting against my face while a single hot tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't know what to do next. Except one thing. I was going to end this marriage. Minutes later, Jake found me outside. Come on, man, he said gently. You don't have to deal with this tonight. Crash at my place. You can figure everything out in the morning. I nodded, grateful. I couldn't face going back to that house. Not with her. The very next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office and filed for divorce. Lisa must have realized there was no way she could spin her way out of what happened, because she never even tried to reach out. Not a single call. Eventually, I learned the full truth. She'd been hooking up with Ryan behind everyone's back for a while. Just a month later, I found out they'd applied for a marriage license. And that's how my marriage ended, with a woman I slept with on the very first night walking out of one wedding dress and right into another.